there folks, this is Vice the Determinant speaking. We haven't made one of these videos in quite a while. We said we'd make more videos like this when we got a new place, and then we postponed them until we got a new camera. Well, we announced a few weeks, give or take ago, that we have a new camera, so we decided to rummage through our stuff to show you some interesting games of yesteryear. The game we're focusing on today is one of the stranger games in our collection. We're going to focus on I should speak in if I'm speaking in Japanese dialect, it would be koeis, but we just typically call it kois. Educational marvel from days gone by, the Emit series. Now it's spelled Emit, but I'll explain a little later perhaps why I stress that it's Emit so much, not so much Emit. Now, you might be thinking, why are we covering an educational game in this fashion? Well, it's not just an educational game, it's a Japanese educational game that teaches English. And Koi approaches history and education in video games better than generally any other video game company I know. This game actually has a decent plot to follow and a few outside-of-the-box ideas for a game of its time. Now, Emit was released back in 1994 for Macintosh PCs. It was later ported to Windows, FM Town, Sega Saturn, PlayStation, Super Famicom, and 3DO. The game even won an award from the Yomiuri Shimbun. Now, Yomiuri Shimbun is a Japanese type of newspaper, a daily newspaper they get in Japan. And America's AP, or some better know them as the Associated Press, are currently, I guess, in a partnership with them, so you can see various happenings in Japan through Associated Press. Now basically, I just want to show a sample of what the Super Famicom games look like since we own those. Now, Emit, to my knowledge, came in 3 volumes. The first volume being Lost in Time, the second volume being A Life and Death Trip, and the third volume being Bid Myself Farewell. For the Super Famicom game, you have multiple parts. They come with scripts for the games in both English and Japanese, I believe. And with the script, you have 2 audio CDs. Now, I'm not sure if all of them come with 2 audio CDs because I've seen for sale the FM Towns version, for example, and it had a floppy disk and 1 CD that I could see. Now, either the seller was missing something or it might have had less audio or something. I'm not entirely sure what the case may be, but you have a manual. That cartridge, and this device, which is known as the Boisa-kun in terms of Japanese dialect, but people typically refer to it as the Voice-kun or Mr. Voice. And
that's like the romanization of it.
Yeah, and we're gonna explain a lot more about that later, so I don't want to talk too much about it at the second. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about it so soon, but I'm looking over all the stuff I got sitting in front of me. I have no choice but to really talk about it since that's what's got to come next. The Voice-kun is an adapter that goes in the second player slot of the Super Famicom, or in our case the SNES or Super Nintendo, since we're playing it on an American system. And it's a lot like the Super Scope receiver. It's a receiver and it gives off and receives signals. In this case, to CD players or DVD players. Really CD players, because back then DVD players weren't like a common thing. But you use a CD or DVD player remote and you can teach it specific commands like play, pause, fast forward and stuff. So when you fast forward, you can do this to adjust the audio in the game. That's how the game gets its audio actually. Now, Emit is a 24 megabit cartridge. And the game, if you've emulated this game, you'll know that the Super Famicom version is not something you can emulate because if you've tried to emulate it, you'll notice it has no sound. And the reason for that is the game was made with no sound. All of the sound you get from the games are actually from the disc. Well, that's the audio CDs, under that script. We just got the script sitting in there because it just looks cooler than seeing the CD. But you would put those in the CD player, and you would program the voice coon so that when you're playing the game, it actually can tell the CD player, okay, when you turn on the Super Famicom, play the opening theme that goes with the opening of the game. And we're going to show you in a second what that means. But first, we got to go through the actual process of programming it. And we're going to show you how to do that because it drove us nuts trying to figure out how to do this ourselves. There's the Koei logo. Now, Koei has their such and such strategy simulation series and blah 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 war simulation series. I'm going to assume they call this particular series of game English Dream. That's what it says in katakana on the screen. Because I guess it was the dream of Japanese people to learn English. But basically, this is the startup screen. Now, we had the voice coon already configured with everything memorized, but for the sake of demonstration, we've cleared the data to show how that works. Now, this is the basic screen. The top option is configuring the voice coon, I believe. Now, you have those 5 buttons there, the pause, play, stop, play, pause, go back, go forward, skip forward. Now, when you're configuring this, you assign the different keys to different things. So, for instance, if you were using like your remote and you want to program the play button, you would find the play button on your remote and point your remote at the voice coon. Now, be aware that there's a particular distance. The manual says something about 3 centimeters and 3 meters. When you're programming the remote, you want it facing the voice coon and you want it real close. And when you do that, the message will automatically prompt on your screen because the system will have received the signal and it'll automatically move on to the next step. That also means that the voice coon is working, so when you hit play, the voice coon knows that the remote has play memorized to it. And you want to do that with all of them eventually, or maybe not. It really depends. It's up to you, but show you again. Set some of these here and probably use a transition because you should probably have the general idea of it by now, but set those real quick. And then you can set other buttons as well by going here. You can set buttons 0 through 9 and 10 plus depending on what your remote has. If it has up to 10 buttons, or if it has more than that, you can program that feature into. And it's real handy for jumping the particular points on the disc, because all this stuff is pretty meticulously laid out while you're playing the game. Every single scene will tell you what track of the CD you should be on, so if like the thing gets jammed and stuff, you can override it and set the audio where it needs to be. Yeah, I mean, the disc has, I'm pretty sure, over 90 tracks on it, so that 10 plus is going to come in handy. And these when they get highlighted, they turn blue, so you know that they're active on the screen. Or they turn some color, because, I mean, using this camera, it's not turned it up blue. It's pretty hard to see. Everything looks kind of greenish blue, but you can probably see it. You probably realize what's going on.